Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really interesting look at something core to English: idioms.
Yeah, those common shortcuts in the language.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're using a great YouTube video as our source. It lays out 100 common idioms with definitions, examples, really helpful stuff.
That's right. And idioms, well, they're everywhere, aren't they? They can make English seem tricky sometimes, but also, incredibly rich.
Totally. There are these phrases where the meaning, it's just not what the individual words suggest.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack some of these, pull out the key ideas from the video, figure out what they really mean, and help you feel, more comfortable hearing them, maybe even using a few.
Because let's face it, if you try to figure them out literally, well, you'll just be lost.
Completely.
Learning them is a huge level up, though. If you want to understand native speakers, media, it makes a big difference.
It really does.
It might seem like a lot, learning 100 idioms, but honestly, getting a handle on the most common ones, that's almost well, dare I say it, a piece of cake.
Oh, nice one. Straight off the list.
I had to do it.
But yeah, you're right. Understanding idioms, it's not exactly rocket science, but it does need a bit of focus because, like you said, the meaning just isn't obvious.
Exactly. So let's jump into the list from the source video. It covers a lot. Obviously, 100 is a big number.
It is.
But we've picked out some of the most useful, maybe the most interesting ones to explore. We'll look at the definition the video gives and the specific examples, too, because context is everything, right?
Absolutely. Seeing how they're used makes all the difference.
Yeah.
So maybe we should start with some idioms about facing challenges, dealing with tricky situations.
Good idea. Okay, so if someone's having a tough time, but you want to encourage them to keep going, you might tell them to.
Hang in there.
Exactly. The source defines that as not giving up hope during difficulties.
Simple but effective.
Yeah, and the example they give is really relatable. Final exams are tough, but hang in there and it'll be okay. It's just supportive.
It is. And sometimes, those difficulties can feel overwhelming. Maybe you're feeling a bit shaken up. In that situation, someone might tell you to pull yourself together.
Right. The video says that means basically recover control of your emotions.
Get a grip.
Yeah. The example used is, I need to pull myself together and stop crying. It's telling someone or yourself to regain composure.
Makes sense. Now, what if your past actions have put you in a bit of a risky spot where, like, one more mistake could cause real trouble?
The source says you are on thin ice.
Good visual, that one.
Isn't it? Walking on thin ice? Obviously risky. Their example is, I'm on thin ice after my behavior at the office party. Like, one more slip up and you're in deep trouble.
Uh-huh. And speaking of mistakes, what if you're just going about something completely the wrong way? Or you've blamed the wrong thing?
Oh, I like this one. You're barking up the wrong tree. It means you're mistaken, right? Or just pursuing the wrong path.
Yeah, wasting your energy in the wrong place.
The video gave that example about studying. I think you're barking up the wrong tree. Rather than reading the textbook cover to cover, you should try the SQ3R method, directing your efforts incorrectly.
Precisely. And sometimes, look, despite everything, a plan just fails completely. What do you do then?
According to the video, you go back to the drawing board.
Start over?
Yeah, basically. Start planning again because plan A didn't work. The example is simple. Well, that didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board. Time for a fresh approach.
It happens. But, even when things seem bad, there's often a positive angle, right?
That's where every cloud has a silver lining comes in.
Yes. The source defines this very optimistically. Every negative situation has some good aspect.
And the example is quite powerful. Every cloud has a silver lining. After being made redundant, I found my dream job. Something bad leading to something good. The teacher in the video actually said this was her favorite idiom.
I can see why. It's a nice thought. But sometimes negative things just pile up. And then one final thing happens.
Right.
And it just makes everything unbearable.
Right. That final thing is called the last straw.
Yes. And the source video mentions it comes from that older phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Just one tiny extra thing is too much.
Exactly. The example was, she's always been rude to me, but it was the last straw when she started insulting my mother. That final insult. That was the breaking point.
Clear example. And sticking with negative situations, sometimes one bad thing happens. and then something else happens to make it even worse.
Oh, yeah. The source offers 2 similar idioms for that, doesn't it?
It does. Add insult to injury.
And to make matters worse.
Both mean basically the same thing, making a bad situation worse. The example for add insult to injury was, I was late, and to add insult to injury, I forgot my keys. Bad, then worse.
And to make matters worse, their example was kind of embarrassing.
Oh, yeah. She accidentally sent a romantic message to her family WhatsApp group. And to make matters worse, it included a picture.
Wow. Talk about awkward.
Definitely making matters worse there.
Okay, let's switch gears. How about communication? Secrets, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you accidentally reveal a secret.
You let the cat out of the bag.
That's the one. The example is about keeping a surprise. Don't let the cat out of the bag because the party is meant to be a surprise. Keep it hidden.
Right. And sort of related. If someone wants you to reveal a secret, or maybe some gossip, they might say.
Spill the beans.
Yeah. Meaning, give away the secret, tell the gossip. The example is someone eager. Go on, spill the beans. I need to know how your date went. They want the details.
Yeah, juicy details. Now, sometimes talking about difficult stuff,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
you might avoid saying what you really mean.
That's beating around the bush.
Avoiding the main point, right, because it's awkward or something.
Exactly. The source's example was pretty blunt. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I hate your boyfriend. Just direct. No beating around the bush there. Definitely not. On the flip side, if you want to summarize something really quickly, use just a few words.
You put it in a nutshell.
Yeah. The source mentioned it's like saying to make a long story short.
Very concise. The example. In a nutshell, everything went wrong. Just the basic outcome.
Here's a fun one. You're talking about someone, and then, poof, they appear right then. You say,
Speak of the devil.
yeah. It's that common thing you say when someone shows up right after being mentioned. The source had a modern example. Stephanie is so mean. Speak of the devil, she just liked my Instagram post.
Right. The devil isn't literal, obviously, just the person you were just talking about.
And if someone says something and you really, really agree with them, you can say,
You can say that again?
yeah, and the source clarifies you don't actually repeat it.
No, It just means I strongly agree.
The example was simple. The weather has been terrible. Response. You can say that again means, yep, absolutely.
Got it. Another one about belief. If you hear something, maybe gossip or a claim, and you shouldn't completely believe it, be skeptical.
You should take it with a pinch of salt. Or, as the source notes, Americans often say grain of salt.
Right. Means don't take it too seriously. Don't assume it's 100% true. The example. I think you need to take anything that Martin says with a pinch of salt. Be cautious about believing him.
Okay. And if you and someone else agree on something,
You see eye to eye.
and if you don't agree,
You don't see eye to eye, like the example. I really don't see eye to eye with my grandma. Different opinions.
makes sense. And finally, for this section, when someone reveals what they're really like, especially if you thought they were different,
They show their true colors.
the source defines this as, like, the kind of person someone really is deep down.
And the example is a classic. I thought he was really nice, and then he was rude to the waiter and showed his true colors. Seeing past the nice act.
Yeah, the video maker mentioned being rude to waiters is a real pet hate, something that really grinds her gears. Another idiom right there.
Ah, yes. Showing true colors indeed. Okay, what about idioms related to effort, value, results?
Right. We sort of mentioned no pain, no gain earlier.
We did. The idea that you need to suffer a bit or work hard to achieve something, often about exercise, like the example. I've been going to the gym twice a day and my muscles ache, but no pain, no gain.
If someone does a job quickly, cheaply, maybe skipping important steps, sacrificing quality.
They cut corners.
The example was about a report. This report is of poor quality. I think the author may have cut some corners, didn't do work properly.
Exactly. Now, if something is really expensive,
It might cost an arm and a leg.
meaning it's just incredibly expensive, like that coat looks like it cost you an arm and a leg. Just a dramatic way to say pricey.
And the opposite, if something's really cheap, the source mentioned this is particularly British.
The cheap as chips.
Yeah, very common phrase. Don't worry about paying me back, they were as cheap as chips. Easy to remember, chips are usually cheap.
They are. Okay, what if you get something exactly right? Like the perfect answer or solution?
You hit the nail on the head.
You've hit the nail on the head. That is the route we should have taken. Identified the perfect thing.
This one's about trust, really. Actions speak louder than words.
Oh, yeah. What someone actually does matters more than what they just say.
The example was about love. I'm going to wait for him to show me he loves me because actions speak louder than words. Show, don't just tell.
Powerful idea. Now, here's a slightly funny one. If someone tries something new, maybe a hobby, and they're, well, not very good at it.
You might say, maybe jokingly, don't give up the day job.
Right. It's a gentle, or sometimes not so gentle, way of saying, you're not great at this. The example, your drum solo was very entertaining, but don't give up the day job. Keep your regular job.
Yeah. Okay, last one for this bit. If you manage to do two things with just one single action,
You killed two birds with one stone.
getting two tasks done efficiently. The example was practical. We could kill two birds with one stone by stopping off at the bakery on the way back from the butcher's. One trip, two errands.
Very efficient.
Okay, let's talk decisions, opportunities. If you rely entirely on one single plan or person for success.
You're putting all of your eggs in one basket.
And the advice is usually, don't do that, right?
Exactly. Diversify. The example. I'm applying for several jobs because I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, spreading the risk.
And if you're too slow and an opportunity passes you by,
You missed the boat.
that chance is gone. I waited too long for the house prices to drop and I missed the boat. Too late.
Happens. Now, what if you have a choice, but you just can't decide? You're stuck in the middle,
You might sit on the fence.
avoiding the decision. The example was cute. I'm sitting on the fence. I really can't choose between these two adorable puppies. Undecided.
Hard choice. Now, if it's someone's turn to make the next decision or take action in a situation,
Ball is in your court.
the responsibility is on you now. The ball is in your court regarding the location of the next event. Your move.
Clear. What about worrying about future problems? If you decide not to stress about something till it actually happens.
You say we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Deal with it then, not now. The example. Don't worry about the car breaking down. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Focus on the present?
Sensible approach sometimes. And a very common piece of advice, especially about money.
Save something for a rainy day.
Meaning, put aside money or resources for when you might unexpectedly need them later.
Right. Prepare for future difficulties. I think you should save that bonus for a rainy day. Good advice.
And sometimes doing something late is still better than never doing it. The source's example had a touch of sarcasm.
Better late than never.
Yeah, often said with a bit of an eye roll maybe. Wow, she finally turned up. Better late than never. Acknowledging lateness, but accepting it happened.
Okay, let's cover some idioms that are just, well, generally very common. Or describe everyday situations, like deciding to stop work for the day.
You call it a day.
Very useful. I'm exhausted. I think I'm going to call it a day. Done for now.
Before a show, especially for actors, what do you say for good luck?
Break a leg.
A classic. Break a leg tonight, you're an amazing actor. Seems weird literally, but everyone knows it means good luck.
Definitely. And at the start of, say, a workshop or a party where people don't know each other, you might do something to
Break the ice.
make people feel comfortable, right? The example. I've organized a fun game to help us all break the ice. Reduce that initial awkwardness. The video creator mentioned hating icebreakers in class, though.
I think many people feel that way. Okay, something happens very, very rarely.
It happens once in a blue moon.
Like, I only go to the cinema once in a blue moon just means very infrequently.
And if you're feeling just a bit sick, or maybe just down,
You're feeling under the weather.
a really common way to say you're not feeling 100%. I don't think I'll come tonight because I'm feeling a bit under the weather.
Here's a great one. That big, obvious issue that everyone knows about but nobody wants to talk about.
That's the elephant in the room.
The source's example was funny and direct. I think we should address the elephant in the room. Your hideous shoes. The awkward truth everyone's ignoring.
Ouch. But effective. We mentioned every cloud has a silver lining. There's another one similar. But something good coming from something seemingly bad.
Ah, yes, a blessing in disguise.
A good thing that seemed bad initially. Like the example, losing that job was a blessing in disguise. Seemed awful, turned out positive.
And finally, for this big list, if you're struggling to understand something or accept it,
You're trying to wrap your head around it.
I still can't wrap my head around why she would do that, trying to comprehend something difficult or confusing.
Makes sense.
Wow. Okay, that was a lot of idioms. A real rapid-fire deep dive.
It was.
And we've only really scratched the surface of the 100 in the source video. But hopefully this selection gives you, listening, a pretty solid feel for some of the most common ones.
And why understanding them is just so important. Absolutely. You will hear these phrases all the time. Native conversation, TV, movies, books. They're everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And understanding them, it just unlocks a whole new level of, fluency and comprehension. They add so much color and nuance and efficiency, really.
It's amazing, isn't it, how just a few words can pack in such a specific shared idea. They're not just phrases, they're like little nuggets of culture.
That's a great way to put it. And what's really fascinating, I think, is exactly that. Idioms are like these tiny capsules of culture, maybe even history, embedded right in the language. If you stop and think about why we say spill the beans or hit the nail on the head, sometimes you can glimpse something about how English speakers think or, how they've thought about things over time. It can be quite revealing.
That really puts them in perspective. It's more than just vocabulary.
Exactly.
So, for you listening, here's a little challenge, maybe. Start listening out for these. Notice them when you hear English spoken around you or when you're watching something.
Uh-huh.
Pay attention.
And maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe even try using one or two yourself this week. Pick a simple one.
Yeah, practice makes progress, right? The more you hear them, the more you use them, the more natural they'll start to feel.
That's great advice. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of English idioms.
My pleasure. Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever been listening to someone speak English and, you feel like you understand all the words and then boom, they say something that makes absolutely zero literal sense?
Yeah, like wishing someone break a leg. What's that about?
Exactly. If that sounds familiar, welcome to the wild world of English idioms and expressions.
Right. And what we're diving into today, it's based on this really insightful treasury of these kinds of phrases.
Okay.
And it highlights how these sayings are basically linguistic shortcuts. They're really deeply woven into everyday conversation.
Shortcuts, I like that.
Yeah, they add color, they convey pretty complex ideas quickly, and frankly, native speakers use them constantly.
Right. So our mission for you in this deep dive is really to cut through that confusion. We're going to explore what some of these incredibly common phrases actually mean, how you can spot them, and crucially, how you can start using them.
Yeah, to sound more natural.
Exactly. To connect more deeply when you speak English, think of it like getting a key to a sort of hidden layer of the language.
And understanding why they matter is, I think, the first step. This treasury makes that really clear.
Okay.
It points out that idioms aren't just, optional extras. They're fundamental to how everyday English works.
So not just slang.
No, not at all. They show up everywhere. Casual chats, movies, books, you name it.
And you hit on the core challenge there. They are almost never literal.
Right.
Trying to translate under the weather word for word, it just leaves you scratching your head.
Totally. Why would someone be standing out in the rain feeling sick? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But the effort to learn them, it has this huge payoff.
How so?
Well, it makes your comprehension just much, much stronger.
Yeah.
And it gives your own spoken English that more sort of native feel.
Okay.
The treasury also suggests, actually, that the process itself can be quite fun, especially when you notice parallels or maybe fascinating differences with non-literal phrases in your own language.
Oh, that's a great point, comparing them.
Yeah.
So how does someone even begin to tackle this huge sea of expressions? The material we looked at gives us a smart way in.
It does. It suggests a staged approach. Basically, start with the most frequently used idioms.
The big ones.
Exactly. Your foundational phrases, the ones you'll encounter constantly. Once those feel comfortable, then you can build outwards to, less frequent, but still common ones.
That makes a lot of sense. Build confidence with what you'll hear and use most.
Right.
And something comforting from the treasury it mentioned that the idioms it covers are all current.
Yes, that's important.
You don't have to worry about sounding old-fashioned or anything. These are phrases you can confidently use with native speakers across different English-speaking countries, like right now.
Good to know they aren't dusty museum pieces, isn't it?
Definitely. They're living parts of the language.
Yeah.
Okay, so following that path, let's jump into the first level, the most common.
The top tier.
Right. These are the expressions you will hear constantly. Casual conversation, TV, movies, they're everywhere. Really getting a handle on these is key to feeling comfortable in everyday English.
Absolutely. Let's look at a few examples from this group. First up, a blessing in disguise.
I like this one, the imagery. It describes something good that happened, right? But at first, it seemed bad.
Exactly. Like maybe you missed your bus, you were really frustrated, but then you find out later that bus had an accident. Missing it was actually a good thing, a blessing, but it didn't feel like it at the time.
A classic blessing in disguise. And usage-wise.
Right. This phrase is almost always used within a sentence, part of a larger thought.
Like, losing that job was a blessing in disguise.
Precisely.
Okay. Next, the one we mentioned, the classic that makes new learners pause, break a leg.
Yeah, despite picturing, actual injury, this is purely a way to wish someone good luck.
Especially before a performance, right? Or
Yeah.
some kind of challenge.
Exactly. And unlike the last one, this is a phrase you can just say on its own.
Just shout it out, break a leg.
Yep. You just say that before someone goes on stage or faces a test.
Got it. Then there's beat around the bush.
This one paints a picture, doesn't it? Someone sort of walking around a topic instead of getting straight to the point.
Yeah, it means avoiding saying what you really mean, usually because it's, well, uncomfortable or difficult.
Precisely. And you'll use this one as part of a sentence.
Like, stop beating around the bush and just tell me what you think.
Perfect example.
Okay, how about this straightforward one? It's not rocket science.
Yeah. If something isn't rocket science, it just means it's not complicated. It's not difficult to understand or do.
Right. Surprisingly simple, actually. And this is another one you can use by itself, isn't it?
It is. Someone's struggling with a basic task, maybe, and you might comment, come on, it's not rocket science.
A little blunt, maybe, but clear.
Can be, yeah.
Okay, finally, in this highly frequent group, under the weather.
Yes. This just means you're feeling sick.
Right. Just a bit unwell.
It's a gentle way to say it, often without going into specifics. Just generally feeling off.
And usage.
Like a blessing in disguise or beat around the bush. You'll typically use this within a sentence.
I'm feeling a bit under the weather today. Something like that.
Exactly like that.
So even just these few examples really show how different the literal meaning is from the actual meaning.
Totally. And you can see how essential they are for just, understanding and joining in everyday conversations.
Okay, so moving to the second level, described in the source material. Common English idioms and expressions.
Right. These aren't necessarily used every single day, maybe, but any native speaker will definitely recognize them and use them pretty regularly.
So still very useful.
Oh, absolutely. Getting comfortable with these will really expand your fluency.
Okay, let's pull a few from this list. First one, costs an arm and a leg.
The imagery here is so strong, isn't it? It just means something is incredibly expensive.
Right. You wouldn't literally give up limbs, but it emphasizes that high price tag.
Exactly. You might say,
that new phone cost me an arm and a leg. Something like that.
Perfect. And yeah, used as part of a sentence.
Okay. Next, we have two different phrases that essentially mean the same thing. Let the cat out of the bag and spill the beans.
Yes. Both mean to reveal a secret, right?
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating that English has two common, totally different images for the same idea. One involves a cat, the other beans.
It is interesting. Language is weird sometimes. And both of these are typically used within a sentence.
Could you give an example?
Sure. She accidentally let the cat out of the bag about the surprise party. Or, come on, spill the beans. What happened?
Got it. Revealing secrets. Okay, here's a piece of advice you might hear. Don't cry over spilt milk.
Mm-hmm. This idiom is usually a complete phrase used by itself.
Like break a leg.
Yeah, in that way. It's a reminder that there's really no point in being upset about something bad that's already happened and, well, can't be undone.
The milk is on the floor. You can't put it back in the carton.
Pretty much. A very practical bit of philosophy baked into language.
It is. How about the elephant in the room?
The big one. This refers to a big, obvious issue or problem that everyone knows is there.
But nobody wants to talk about.
Exactly. Everyone's deliberately avoiding it, usually because it's uncomfortable or maybe sensitive.
Yeah, you can picture it. Hard to ignore a whole elephant. And this is used within a sentence.
Yes, like their financial difficulties were the elephant in the room during the family dinner. Everyone knew, nobody said anything.
Awkward. Okay, and lastly for this category, once in a blue moon.
This one evokes a rare celestial event, right? A blue moon.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I mean. Something that happens very infrequently.
Yeah.
Very rarely.
Right, and you'd use this as part of a sentence.
You would.
Okay.
I only go to the cinema once in a blue moon these days.
Okay. These common expressions, they really start to add like nuance and descriptive power, don't they?
They absolutely do. They make the language much richer.
Right. Okay, moving into the third category the treasury describes. Familiar idioms and proverbs. Now, these phrases, the source says they're widely understood by native speakers.
Yeah, everyone knows them.
But you might not hear them quite as often in like casual everyday chats as the first two groups. Is that right?
That's generally true. They often sound a bit more maybe formal,
Hmm.
or they contain traditional wisdom. A lot of them are proverbs.
Okay, so good to know, but maybe not for everyday sprinkling into conversation just yet.
Exactly. They're great for adding extra depth or sort of spice once you're comfortable with the more frequent ones.
Got it. Let's explore a few classic examples from this list then. First, the proverb, a stitch in time saves nine.
This definitely sounds like old-fashioned advice, doesn't it?
It does.
And it is. It basically means that fixing a small problem right now will save you a lot more work, or maybe cost later on.
It stops the problem from getting much bigger.
Exactly. A small repair now prevents, extensive damage down the line. And this is typically used by itself as a piece of advice.
Makes sense. Here's one with a bit of a warning vibe. Curiosity killed the cat.
Ooh, yeah. This proverb is often used on its own, too, usually as a caution.
A warning against what?
Against being too inquisitive or nosy.
Yeah.
It suggests it can lead to trouble or danger. Like, maybe don't ask too many questions about things that aren't your business.
Oh, a good reminder to know when to stop digging. Okay, what about it takes two to tango?
Ah, another one usually used by itself. This means that if a situation involves conflict or, some kind of difficulty between people, both people involved share some responsibility. You can't just blame one person entirely.
Right, like in an argument, you can't just point the finger. Both sides probably contributed. Well, it takes two to tango.
Exactly. Shared responsibility.
Okay, next, another proverb with a pretty clear message. You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs.
This one means that achieving something worthwhile or creating something new, it inevitably involves some costs or difficulties or maybe negative side effects.
There's always a price to pay, basically.
Right. You have to accept the necessary, maybe unpleasant steps or sacrifices to reach your goal. And this is another phrase typically used by itself.
Okay, and finally for this group, weather the storm.
This idiom describes successfully getting through a really difficult period or challenge.
Like a ship surviving rough seas.
Exactly that image. You might say, the company managed to weather the storm during the recession.
Okay, so that one is used within a sentence.
Yes, that's right.
These proverbs and less frequent idioms, they really do feel like they carry a bit more weight or maybe history compared to the everyday ones.
They definitely add a different dimension. They often summarize common human experiences or bits of wisdom passed down.
So, okay, we've kind of navigated through these different layers of English non-literal language.
Yeah, from the phrases you hear constantly to those familiar proverbs carrying deeper meaning, all guided by the structure and examples in that treasury we looked at.
And the real takeaway for you, the listener, is hopefully recognizing that fluency isn't just about knowing individual words.
Not at all. It's also about understanding these shared cultural phrases, these idioms.
Right. Mastering them boosts your confidence, it sharpens your listening comprehension.
And allows you to connect with English speakers in a more authentic way.
Yeah.
On their wavelength, sort of.
And as you absorb these, it's worth thinking about the phrases we've discussed. How do they compare to the non-literal sayings in your own language?
Yeah, that's a fascinating exercise.
Do you have an equivalent for, I don't know, raining cats and dogs or something being a piece of cake?
It really highlights the unique ways different cultures capture ideas in this kind of linguistic shorthand. It's pretty amazing.
It is. So looking back at this incredible treasury of English idioms and proverbs we've dipped into.
Consider how many of these phrases, they seem simple on the surface, but they paint these vivid mental pictures.
Or contain these compressed nuggets of cultural understanding or wisdom.
Exactly. So maybe think, which one felt the most surprising to learn? Or perhaps the most fun to imagine using yourself?
Or maybe just pause and reflect on how much of language, really, across the board, operates on these layers of meaning beneath the literal surface. It's not just about the dictionary definitions, is it?
Not at all. There's a whole world underneath.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're talking all about how to nail those job interviews in English.
Okay.
We've got this awesome guide, right?
Yes.
And it's got like over 50 phrases, but we're going to go deeper. We're not just going to read the phrases to you. We want to like really understand why they work and how you can use them to just really shine. You know what I mean?
It's all about that authenticity, right?
Yeah.
It's understanding what's behind the phrase.
Yeah.
Why is it effective? And then how do you use it? So it's not just you're like this robot spitting out these phrases.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. You walk in the door, you sit down, you've got that first impression, you've got the greeting and the intro. How important is this part?
It's crucial. It's like the first few seconds can really set the tone for the rest of the interview.
Okay, and this guide has some interesting phrases here. Like one of them is, I've been looking forward to discussing how my skills align with this position. So, I mean, does that little tweak really make that much of a difference?
Yeah, it does. It does, because instead of just saying, like, hi, nice to meet you, you're already indicating that you're here to provide value, that you've thought about this, you've done your research, you understand what their needs are, and you're already positioning yourself as someone who can contribute to meeting those needs.
So it's not just about finding a job, it's about helping them with their problems almost.
Exactly. It shows that you've thought about this beyond just looking at their website for 2 minutes.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we've aced the greeting. Now comes the dreaded, tell me about yourself. And I feel like people just default to summarizing their resume.
Yeah, they tend to just kind of go through like,
Yeah.
a laundry list.
Right.
And it's like a missed opportunity. This is your chance to actually tell a story.
Oh.
Think about those key skills and experiences that you have that align with this role and that make you unique.
So instead of just saying, I have 5 years of experience in marketing, what would be a better way to say that?
Yeah, so you can actually use an example from the guide, which is, I'm a highly motivated marketing professional with 5 years of experience crafting and executing successful digital campaigns. So you're already giving them something concrete.
Oh, I like that. It paints a picture.
Exactly. Instead of just listing, you're actually showcasing the impact you've had.
I see. Okay. So moving on, we start getting into like the skills and strengths. And I feel like this is where people either exaggerate or just use vague language.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really good at this.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, well, good. Doesn't mean anything to me.
Right. And that's where this guide really stresses using action-oriented verbs. Things like proficient in or, excel at, demonstrated ability to, because you're actually showing, not just telling what you can do.
Yeah, and it has some great examples here. Like, I'm proficient in using tools like Python, Tableau, and SQL for data visualization and analysis.
Yeah.
That sounds so much more impactful than just saying, I'm good with data.
Exactly, because now you're being specific. You're using their language.
Yeah.
You're checking off those boxes on their, what they're looking for wish list.
Right. And especially in today's job market where it's so competitive, you really need to make it clear that you've got the goods.
You have those skills that they're looking for.
Okay, so we've talked about ourselves, we've talked about our skills. Now I got to dive into like our work experience. How do we get beyond just like listing our job titles and what we did at each place?
This is where I really like that the guide talks about the STAR method. Have you heard of this?
I have, but I don't know if our listeners have.
Okay, so STAR stands for situation, task, action, result.
Okay.
And it's really helpful because it gives you a framework for telling these stories that showcase your achievements.
Right.
So instead of saying, I was responsible for project management, you can actually give a specific example.
Yeah.
So in my previous role at, Company X, I managed a complex software implementation project, leading a team of 5 to successfully deliver the project under budget and ahead of schedule.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just a task anymore. It's a whole story.
Exactly. It's a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And it also highlights all those great things that you did.
Right.
Leadership, delivering results.
Yeah. And the guide really stresses the importance of using quantifiable results. Like, don't just say, I improved sales. Say, I increased sales by 20%.
Exactly. The numbers are powerful.
They make it real.
Yes.
Okay, so now we come to the part that everybody dreads, talking about weaknesses and challenges. This guide has a rather interesting take on this. What is it?
Well, it emphasizes honesty and growth. So instead of trying to hide your weaknesses or pretend they don't exist, it's about framing them as areas you're actively improving. So instead of saying, oh, I'm a bit disorganized sometimes, you can say something like, one area I'm working on is improving my time management skills. To address this, I've started using a project management tool to prioritize tasks and track deadlines.
Oh, so you're turning it into a positive.
Exactly. You're acknowledging the weakness, but you're showing self-awareness and a proactive approach.
Yeah, that you're willing to actually work on yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's something employers really appreciate.
Absolutely. It shows you're committed to continuous learning and growth.
Okay, so we've laid all this groundwork. Now we're getting towards the end of the interview, and we have a chance to ask some questions. This isn't just about sitting there waiting for them to wrap up. This is our chance to interview them, right?
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
So the guide here, it suggests some questions like, can you tell me more about the team I'd be working with? Now that seems pretty basic. What makes a question like that effective?
Well, you're going beyond just the responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're trying to get a sense of the company culture. What are the team dynamics like?
Okay.
Do they value collaboration? What are the communication styles like? And that can tell you a lot.
So it's like reading between the lines of the job description. You're not just thinking about what you're going to be doing, you're thinking about who you're going to be doing it with.
Exactly. You're going to be spending 40+ hours a week with these people.
Right, right. Okay, and another question that it suggests is, what does a typical day look like for someone in this role? Again, seems pretty basic. What's good about that one?
Well, it shows that you're thinking practically, right?
Okay.
About the day-to-day realities of the job.
Yeah, and I like that one because it helps you kind of picture yourself.
Yes.
Like, am I going to be in meetings all day? Am I going to be like heads down at my computer?
Exactly. And then you can gauge whether the work style aligns with your preferences. Another great question the guide suggests is, how does this role contribute to the company's overall goals?
Oh, I like that one.
So again, you're showing that you're not just there for a paycheck. You're thinking big picture. How can your work make a meaningful impact?
Right. Like, I'm here to help you achieve your mission.
Yes, exactly.
But is there a risk of sounding too ambitious or overstepping with a question like that?
Not if it's genuine. Most employers appreciate when candidates are genuinely interested in the company's mission and how their role fits in.
Okay, so it's about finding that balance between being ambitious but also realistic.
Right.
Okay, so now we're wrapping up. How do we make sure we leave a really good final impression?
So the guide talks about expressing gratitude, reiterating your interest, but making sure it's authentic.
Okay, so not just the typical, like, thank you for your time.
Exactly.
What's something better?
You can say something like, I appreciate the opportunity to learn more about this role and how my skills can contribute to your team. So you're being more specific.
Right, so you're summarizing what you've learned and also connecting it back to how you can help them.
Exactly. And then if you want to go a step further, you can even offer to provide additional information.
Okay.
Like, please let me know if you need any further details about my experience or qualifications.
Okay.
But frame it as a genuine offer, not a demand.
Right, right. You don't want to come across as desperate.
Exactly.
Okay, so confidence but not arrogance.
Exactly. Those closing moments are just as important as the opening.
Right. All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, from like the minute you walk in the door to the minute you say goodbye. But this guide is more than just like a list of phrases to memorize, right?
Absolutely. It's about understanding the underlying principles of communication and applying those to the job interview.
So it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between using these proven techniques and letting your authentic self shine through.
Well, that brings up another point, which is like authenticity, right? This guide keeps emphasizing the importance of being yourself. But how do you balance that with, you still want to come across as professional?
Yeah.
Where's the line?
Right.
How do you walk that tightrope?
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. You can use the phrases and the techniques to help structure your responses.
Yeah.
And to highlight those strengths. But the content should come from a genuine place.
Oh, okay. So it's like you're using the guide as like a foundation.
Yes.
But then you're building on top of it.
Exactly. Like, let's say they ask you to describe a time you faced a challenge at work.
Yeah.
You could use that STAR method that we talked about.
Right.
To structure your answer.
Yeah.
But the specific challenge you choose to talk about and how you overcame it, that should come from your real life experience.
Right, right. So it's like you're using the tools.
Yes.
But then you're also letting your personality show through.
Exactly. Like, imagine you're at a dinner party and someone asks you about your work. You wouldn't just recite a list of phrases.
Right. You tell them a story.
Yeah, you tell a story, you talk about what you're passionate about.
Right.
It would be a natural conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of energy you want to bring to an interview.
I see, I see. So it's like being yourself, but like the best version of yourself.
Exactly. Because interviewers, they're not just looking for, someone who can do the job. They're also looking for someone who's going to be a good fit for their team.
Right, a cultural fit.
Exactly. So they want to know if you'd be a good addition, not just like a robot who can do the tasks.
Right, okay. So really it's about being prepared, being professional, but also being genuine and enthusiastic.
Exactly. The guide is a great resource, for learning how to articulate those thoughts and experiences effectively.
Right.
But ultimately, it's your unique personality and passion that's going to make you stand out.
Okay. So I think to wrap up this deep dive into acing job interviews in English, the key takeaway is this. Master the techniques, use the phrases, but infuse them with your own personality and your own experience.
Well said. And don't be afraid to practice.
Oh, yeah.
The more you practice these phrases and you tailor them to your own stories, the more confident and authentic you're going to feel when that big day comes.
Right, right. Well, to all of our listeners out there who are preparing for the next big interview, we hope this has given you some valuable tools. Go out there, be yourself, and good luck. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something that I think we can all relate to. Those pesky words and phrases, the ones that we should probably just get rid of for good.
Yeah.
We all want to be better communicators, right?
Right.
And sometimes it's the little things that can really trip us up. So we found this really cool article. It's called 33 Words and Phrases to Remove from Your Vocabulary Immediately. And I'm super curious what jumped out at you when you saw this list.
It is interesting, isn't it, how we use these phrases without even realizing how they make other people see us? I think what really stood out to me was this section on filler words. All the ums and likes and knows that we all use.
Oh, yeah. We all know those ones. But what I thought was really interesting was that they pointed out a couple that I never even thought of as filler words before. Words like just and basically.
It's subtle, but they can really take away from what you're saying. Like instead of saying, I just wanted to ask a quick question, you can say, I have a question. It just sounds so much more confident, more direct. It's like you're trying to make your question seem less important even before you've asked it.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like you're apologizing for even asking.
Yeah, it's like we're apologizing for having a thought. And basically, what's wrong with that one? I use that all the time.
If you think about it, basically just adds extra fluff you don't need. It's like saying, I'm going to tell you something, but first I'm going to tell you that I'm going to tell you something.
Oh, you're so right. It's so indirect, and it's like you're not even sure about what you're going to say, which actually kind of brings us to another point. Those words and phrases that make you sound less confident, things like, I think, or hopefully, or maybe. What's going on there? Why do we use those?
Well, there's actually been a ton of research on this. It usually boils down to wanting to soften what we're saying or not wanting to come off too strong.
Yeah.
Like we're afraid of being wrong or being judged or maybe stepping on someone's toes.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, especially at work, right? Where you don't want to seem too aggressive or anything.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's also a sort of societal pressure too, like especially for women. They're kind of expected to be more accommodating and less assertive.
There's definitely a societal pressure there. And I think it's something we should all be more aware of and try to push back against. But the good news is this article gives us some really good ways to rephrase these phrases that make us sound less confident. So like instead of saying, I think we should consider this, you can just say, we should consider this. It just sounds way more confident.
I am so guilty of that one. What about those phrases that sound like you're always looking for someone to agree with you? Like, does that make sense? I think we all do that sometimes, especially when we're explaining something complicated.
It makes sense to want to make sure people are following you, but if you do it too mono, it can actually make you seem less credible. So instead of saying, does that make sense? Try saying something like, I hope this explanation is clear. It gets the same point across without sounding like you need someone to tell you you're doing a good job.
That's a really subtle difference, but I can see how it would make a big impact. Maybe we should all try to pay more attention to how we're using these phrases.
Yeah.
Have you noticed yourself using any of these confidence killers in your own conversations?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think we all do it sometimes. It's all about being more aware of it and making a choice to use more powerful language. And that actually brings us to another category of phrases that can really make a difference in how people see you. Apologetic language.
You mean like the apology trap?
Yeah.
I've heard so much about this. It's amazing to me how often we say sorry, even when we haven't done anything wrong.
Right.
It's like we're apologizing for existing, for like taking up space or having needs.
Yeah, exactly. And you see it a lot with certain groups, especially women. There's this pressure to be more accommodating and less assertive. But if you apologize all the time, it can actually make what you're saying seem less important.
The article gives a really great example of this. Instead of saying, sorry to bother you, but can I ask a question? You could just say, "May I ask a question?"
Mm,
You don't have to apologize for wanting to learn something.
it's such a small change, but it can make you sound so much more confident. And it just shows that you don't need to apologize for simply existing or asking a question.
Right. Have you ever been on the receiving end of that? Like someone is constantly apologizing and it makes you feel like you have to reassure them that it's okay to just exist or ask a question.
Oh, for sure. It's like it creates this weird dynamic. And I think it can be contagious, too. Like if one person is always apologizing, it makes everyone else feel like they need to apologize, too, even if they haven't done anything wrong.
It really is. It's like we're all shrinking ourselves and our ideas, especially at work. Which actually kind of reminds me of another category of words we should probably avoid. Vague phrases.
Oh, yeah. The kind ofs and sort ofs and all that stuff.
Right. But isn't there a time and a place for being vague? Like if you're not really sure about something or you don't want to give a definite answer.
There's definitely a difference between being diplomatic and being vague. But when you're intentionally vague, it can lead to misunderstandings and confusion. Think about it. Have you ever gotten like an email or a text message that was so vague that you had no idea what the person was trying to say?
Oh, all the time. It's so frustrating.
Exactly.
And this article points out a few vague phrases that are just the worst. Like, it is what it is.
Ugh, I know.
I hate that one. It just sounds so defeatist.
Right? Like you're just giving up before you've even tried.
Exactly. So what's a better way to deal with a tough situation?
Instead of just accepting it, why not focus on what you can do? You could say something like, "Here's how we can approach this," or "Let's look at some other options." It puts the focus on action instead of just giving up.
Okay, yeah, that's much better. It's about taking charge instead of just letting things happen. And even simple phrases like kind of or sort of can make you sound unsure of yourself.
Imagine you're trying to sell a new idea at work and you say, "I'm kind of excited about this project." It just doesn't have the same impact as saying, "I'm excited about this project."
Right.
By getting rid of those little words, you're saying what you really mean more directly, more confidently.
Yeah, it's like those little words create this barrier between you and what you're trying to say. And speaking of barriers, this leads us to another group of words that can really get in the way of good communication. Jargon.
The jargon jungle.
I think we've all been lost in there at some point.
It can be so confusing, especially if you're new to a field or trying to learn something new.
It really is. And sometimes I wonder if people use jargon just to sound smart or to fit in, even if it makes what they're saying harder to understand.
Oh, definitely. Jargon can be a way of showing that you belong to a certain group. But the problem is, it often makes it harder for people to understand you.
The article calls out some of the classic examples of overused business jargon. Think outside the box is one that comes to mind immediately.
Yeah.
It's become so cliche that it's lost all meaning.
It's like saying, "Be creative, but I'm not going to tell you how."
So how do we escape the jargon trap? What are some better ways to say these things?
Instead of think outside the box, try being more specific about what you mean. You could say something like, "Let's challenge our assumptions," or "Let's come up with some unusual approaches."
I like those. And I think it's important to remember that jargon can be different depending on what industry you're in. What might be common jargon in one field could be totally foreign in another. What are some other jargon phrases that drive you crazy?
Circle back is one that always gets me.
Yes.
It's such a roundabout way of saying, "We'll talk about this later."
Just see what you mean.
Right.
And synergy. That word gets thrown around so much that I'm not even sure what it means anymore.
Synergy has become such a buzzword. It's lost all meaning.
It's like it's supposed to be this magical solution to every problem. Have you ever been in a meeting where someone says synergy and everyone just nods along like they know what it means, but secretly you're all thinking, what the heck is synergy?
Oh, yeah, all the time. It shows how important it is to just ask for clarification when you don't understand something. Don't be afraid to say, "I don't get it. Can you explain that?"
That's such great advice. I think sometimes we're afraid to ask because we don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
But really, it just shows that you're paying attention and you want to learn.
Exactly. And that actually leads to another important part of communication that goes beyond just the words we use. We've been talking about what we say, but it's also important to think about how we say it. Our tone of voice, our body language, our listening skills, all of that plays a role.
Yeah, it's about the whole picture, right?
Right. Imagine you're giving a presentation at work and you've got this amazing message, but you're speaking in a monotone voice, not making eye contact and slouching over the podium. It doesn't matter how good your words are if your body language is saying something totally different.
It's like we're sabotaging ourselves without even knowing it. So how can we be more aware of our body language and make sure it's matching what we're saying?
Well, it all starts with just paying attention to yourself. Like, notice how you're standing, your facial expressions, how your voice sounds. Are you coming across as confident and interested? Or are you giving off vibes that you're not sure of yourself or you don't really care?
Oh, I know. I've been in situations where I thought I was projecting confidence, but looking back, I bet my body language was totally giving away how nervous I was.
Yeah, we've all been there. The important thing is to recognize when that's happening and try to make a conscious effort to change it. So if you're feeling nervous, try to focus on standing up straight, making eye contact, and speaking clearly and evenly.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about listening? Any tips for being a better listener? Not just hearing the words, but really understanding what the other person is trying to say.
Active listening is so important for good communication. It's about being present in the conversation, paying attention to what the person is saying, both with their words and their body language, and asking questions to make sure you understand their point of view.
It's like we need to put on our detective hats and look for clues beyond just the words themselves.
Exactly. And when you really listen to someone, it shows them that you respect what they have to say. It builds trust and strengthens relationships.
That's so true. I think it's easy to get caught up in our own heads and forget to really tune in to what other people are saying. So to bring it all back to our listeners today, how can they use this information to become better communicators?
I think the first step is just to be more aware of your own habits. Notice the words and phrases you use all the time. Are they helping you or hurting you?
Yeah, like holding up a mirror to how we communicate and seeing if anything needs to be adjusted.
Right. And once you've figured out what you want to change, it's all about practice. Make a conscious effort to replace those words and phrases with something better, something more powerful and more authentic.
And don't be afraid to try different things. See what works for you in different situations.
Exactly. Communicating is a skill. And like any skill, you have to practice to get better at it.
It's a journey, not a destination, right? We're all constantly learning and growing as communicators.
Oh, true.
So to wrap up our deep dive into the words we should banish from our vocabulary, I think the biggest takeaway is that even small changes can have a big impact. By being more mindful of the words we use, our tone of voice, and our body language, we can all become more confident, clear, and persuasive communicators.
Absolutely. The words we choose matter. They shape how people see us, how we connect with each other, and how well we achieve our goals.
So here's a challenge for our listeners. Pick one word or phrase from our list today and try to stop using it this week. Pay attention to how it feels to use a different word. Do you feel more confident? Do people react to you differently?
I love that. It's amazing how much of a difference even a small change can make.
And one final thought. Today we focused on spoken language. But what about when we write? Our emails, texts, social media posts. It's something to think about. How can we bring that same awareness and intention to our writing?
That's such a good point. What we write can be just as important as what we say, maybe even more so. It's worth taking the time to really think about what we're writing and make sure it reflects who we are and what we want to say.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored language and communication. Until next time, happy communicating. All right, let's level up those communication skills today. Ready to dive into cross-cultural conversations.
Always ready for a good conversation.
We're looking at this article called 12 Phrases You Should Never Say to Native Speakers. And I think everyone listening can relate to this. I know I've definitely made some of these mistakes.
Oh, absolutely. We all have. It's like a minefield out there sometimes. You never know what's going to accidentally cause offense.
And the thing is, it's not always about being intentionally rude, right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding the subtle ways our words can impact others, especially when we're navigating different cultures and languages.
It's about building those genuine connections, showing respect, even if we make a mistake.
Right. So let's unpack this article. What kind of conversational gems can we unearth today? And right off the bat, there's a pattern that jumps out at me. A lot of these problematic phrases start with you. Things like, you speak too fast, or you don't look nationality, or even, your English is so good.
It's so true. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's like we're putting the other person under a microscope, making judgments without even realizing it.
Yeah, instead of trying to understand their perspective, we just put them on the spot.
Exactly. So let's break down some examples. Take, you speak too fast. The article points out that this is often more about our own listening skills than their speaking pace.
It's about us taking responsibility.
Right. Instead of you speak too fast, we could simply say, Could you repeat that more slowly, please?
It's a subtle shift, but it makes a world of difference, don't you think?
Huge difference. It changes the whole tone.
And what about something like, your language is so hard? Have you heard that one before?
All the time. And honestly, I've probably said it myself without thinking, but it can come across as so dismissive. Like their whole culture is something to be feared or avoided.
It's like if someone told you that your native language was difficult and strange. Wouldn't feel great, would it?
Not at all. Instead of judging their language, we could express some genuine interest. Maybe something like, I'm finding this one aspect challenging, but I'm really enjoying learning your language.
Yeah, I like that. You're acknowledging the difficulty, but showing that you appreciate their culture and language.
Exactly. And, you might even find that they're happy to share their own experiences. Maybe they've struggled with languages too. It can lead to a much deeper conversation.
Totally. All right, here's another one that I think a lot of us have probably heard or even said. You don't look nationality.
Oh, that's a tough one. It's like we're challenging their whole identity based on our own limited perceptions.
Reducing them to a stereotype instead of seeing them as an individual.
Exactly. The article suggests just avoiding comments on appearance altogether, especially when it comes to their nationality.
It's just not our place to make those judgments.
Right. And, we often make these comments without any bad intentions, but it's important to be aware of the impact.
Absolutely. So there's definitely a common thread here with these you statements. We need to move beyond those surface-level chit-chats and recognize that the words we choose, they can really make a difference.
They can build bridges or create barriers.
For sure. And I think this is already making me rethink some of my own conversational habits. There's so much more to unpack here. What other phrases should we avoid in cross-cultural conversations?
Well, let's move on to some phrases that dive into respecting individuality. Avoiding assumptions about people's lives. Like, have you ever been asked, do you know random person from their country?
Oh, all the time. It's like assuming everyone from a particular country is part of this giant social club. It always makes me cringe a little bit.
Right. It's like because they're from the same country, they must know each other.
It's just crazy.
And, it really highlights how we tend to put cultures in a box, forgetting about their diversity and just how vast they really are. It's like asking someone from a small town if they're best friends with the mayor, Just because they share a location doesn't mean they have this personal connection.
Yeah. Like, I'm from Canada. Does that mean I'm best friends with Justin Trudeau? Of course not.
Exactly. And it completely disregards their own individual experiences and relationships. So instead of that awkward question, what does the article suggest?
Well, they recommend something much more thoughtful. Like, I heard about this specific person or topic related to your country. What do you think about them?
Ooh, I like that.
It shows genuine interest, but it's still respectful of their individual perspective.
Yeah, you're not assuming they know everyone and everything. You're actually engaging them in a conversation.
Exactly. All right, here's another one that I think we've all probably heard or even said at some point. Your English is so good for a foreigner.
Ah, yes, the classic backhanded compliment.
It's like we're surprised they could speak English fluently.
Like we're setting this lower bar based on their background.
Yeah, and it reinforces this idea that English is the default, and everyone else is just trying to catch up. What's a better way to say it?
How about, you're very fluent?
I like it.
Yeah.
Simple and straight to the point.
It focuses on their actual skills instead of their perceived limitations.
All right, now this next phrase really made me stop and think. It's about how we view language. Have you ever heard someone say, why don't you speak your native language perfectly?
Wow. That's a tough one. Who gets to decide what perfect language even is?
Exactly. Like there's some objective standard.
Right. Languages are constantly evolving, and there are so many dialects and variations.
It's like saying someone should be penalized for having a regional accent.
Yeah. It ignores the beauty and richness of just how different we all are.
So what does the article recommend in this situation?
Well, they recommend avoiding comments on their native language skills altogether unless they bring it up themselves.
Makes sense.
It's about respecting their own individual linguistic journey, not critiquing it.
Yeah. I'm really seeing a theme emerge here. We've talked about the you problem, respecting individuality, and now it's like we're moving towards cultural curiosity instead of cultural critique.
You're picking up on it, for sure. The article talks about approaching these conversations with a positive, inquisitive mindset.
Yeah. Instead of pointing out what someone's doing wrong based on our own cultural norms, we should try to understand why they do things differently.
What can we learn from their approach?
Exactly. So instead of judging or correcting, we should be asking questions.
Showing genuine interest. So, for example, instead of saying, that's not how we do it, we could say, that's interesting. Tell me more about how things work in your culture.
Okay, I like that. So what are some other examples of phrases that might fall into this category of cultural critique?
Well, one that often comes to mind is, can you teach me some bad words?
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one a lot.
It kind of makes light of their language, doesn't it?
It does. It's like saying their language is only interesting if it can teach me how to be offensive.
And you know, there are so many other ways to express genuine interest in their language.
Like what?
How about, what are some phrases that locals often use?
Oh, that's so much better. It shows you're actually interested in learning about their culture.
And another common one that can be a bit intrusive is, how much money do you make?
Oh, yeah. That's a definite no-go.
It's way too personal, and it can be considered rude in so many cultures.
So instead of prying into their personal finances, what could we ask instead?
Maybe ask about the job market in their country, or what career opportunities are common in their field. Keep the conversation a little broader.
Right. You're showing interest, but respecting those boundaries.
Okay. Now here's one that a lot of people might not even realize is offensive. Your accent is funny.
Ooh, I've been guilty of that one.
I think we've all chuckled at someone's accent before without realizing how hurtful it could be. It's easy to forget how personal language is.
Like you're making fun of who they are.
Exactly. So instead of that, what if we just expressed genuine curiosity? You could say, I like your accent. Where is it from?
You're turning a potential insult into a conversation starter.
You got it. It's all about that mindset shift. From critique to curiosity, recognizing that everyone's accent tells a story.
It's like each accent is a little piece of their history and their journey.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about what not to say, but I'm curious, what can we do to actively bridge that gap in cross-cultural conversations?
Yeah, what are the positive steps?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Instead of saying things like, you're so lucky to be a native speaker, which can downplay their own efforts and challenges, what if we show genuine interest by saying, it must be interesting growing up with English as your first language?
That's a much better way to acknowledge their experience.
And instead of saying, that's not how we say it in my country, which can be dismissive, we can say, that's an interesting way to say it. I'd love to learn more about how expressions work here.
I love that. You're turning a potential disagreement into a learning opportunity.
And finally, instead of saying, you wouldn't understand, which completely shuts down the conversation, we can explain our own perspective by saying, let me explain, it's a bit different in my culture.
It acknowledges the difference but keeps the conversation flowing.
Exactly. All of these subtle shifts, they're about so much more than just words.
It's about listening, being open, and showing respect.
You got it. It's about recognizing that we all have something to learn from each other.
Okay, we're back, ready to wrap up this deep dive into cross-cultural conversations.
Lots of good stuff to review.
We've gone from those you statements all the way to that mindset shift from critique to curiosity. So much to consider.
It's like a whole new way of thinking about how we talk to people from other cultures.
Definitely. So let's boil it down to the essentials. What are the key things to keep in mind?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, be mindful of your language. We saw how even those little phrases can have a big impact, especially when we're talking about identity or culture.
It's almost like a whole new set of rules to learn, but the results are worth it, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just the words themselves. Active listening is huge. It's not just waiting for your turn to speak. It's really trying to grasp their perspective.
Putting our assumptions aside for a minute.
Right. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Genuine curiosity goes a long way in bridging cultural gaps.
Instead of assuming we know everything, we get to learn directly from them.
Exactly. And look, we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and that's okay.
I think sometimes we try so hard to be politically correct that we forget to just be ourselves.
Authenticity is key. People can tell when you're genuinely interested, even if you slip up here and there.
It's all about being open to learning from our mistakes, isn't it?
Absolutely. If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's to be mindful, be curious, and be yourself. Embrace those conversations.
That's such great advice. We've given everyone a lot to think about.
Remember, our differences are what make the world so interesting.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey into cross-cultural communication. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those conversations going.
The world's full of incredible people with stories to share. Just be ready to listen.
All right, so you want to speak English.
Yes.
Right, like with more confidence, I mean.
Yeah.
Go beyond just hello and goodbye,
Yeah.
Well, today we're diving into this guide. It says it'll unlock the secrets to sounding like a native speaker. And let me tell you, there's some seriously cool stuff in here.
I do.
Way beyond basic phrases.
Okay, so what's interesting about this guide, it challenges the traditional way of learning languages.
Oh, how so?
Well, it argues that instead of focusing only on grammar rules and vocab lists,
Yeah.
we should be learning how to actually talk,
Communicate.
Yeah, in real life situations.
Right, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
how do you actually go about doing that? I mean, it's
Well-
easy to say talk more, but what should you actually be saying?
Well, the guide says you should start with simple phrases.
Okay.
Practical phrases that you'd use, in everyday life. Like, think of it as building a foundation for fluency.
Okay.
And it breaks these situations into, categories,
Very
like
simple.
introductions, daily routine.
Yeah. Ordering food, asking for directions.
Yeah.
And each category gives you a set of phrases and expressions that native speakers use all the time.
So it's like a cheat sheet
Yeah.
for navigating real life conversations.
Exactly.
That's awesome. It takes away some of the pressure, of trying to figure out what to say on the spot.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is the guide encourages you to
Yeah.
use these phrases as a springboard
Oh, cool.
for more extended conversation.
Oh, I like that.
So let's say you're at a coffee shop, right?
Okay.
And you want to start talking to someone.
Okay.
You could start by saying, "Hi, I'm listener's name. I really like the atmosphere here."
That's so easy.
Right.
Yeah, anyone can do that.
And then you could ask a question like, do you come here often? Or what's your favorite drink?
That's such a good example.
Right.
It's simple, but it opens the door for a more natural conversation.
Exactly.
But what about this whole...
Sounding like a native speaker thing?
Okay.
Is it really possible to get rid of your accent?
Well, the guide, it addresses that
Okay.
and offers a really fun technique. Imitation.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It suggests watching popular TV shows or movies
Okay.
and trying to mimic how they're talking.
Wait, so you're telling me I can improve my English by watching Friends?
Exactly.
That's my kind of homework.
And it's not just about the words.
Oh, okay.
It's about paying attention to the intonation, rhythm, and stress patterns.
Mm-hmm.
These are super important for sounding natural and fluent.
Okay.
And the guide recommends this technique called shadowing,
Shadowing.
where you listen to a short audio clip
Okay.
and then you repeat it, immediately
Oh, wow.
try to match the speaker's pace and pronunciation.
Oh, so that's shadowing.
Yeah.
That sounds intense, but I can see how it'd be effective.
Right.
Those little nuances of pronunciation.
It is.
So it's like you're training your ears and your mouth to work together.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
And the guide says you should start with really short, simple phrases
Okay.
and then gradually work up to longer sentences and dialogues.
Yeah.
Key is to be patient and consistent.
Right.
Don't worry about sounding perfect.
No, of course.
Right.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense.
Yeah.
But I have to ask about
Yeah.
the elephant in the room,
Okay.
vocabulary.
Okay.
I've always struggled with memorizing words,
Right.
long lists of words.
Yeah.
Is there a more strategic way to approach this?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
The guide stresses that simply memorizing words, out of context, it isn't effective.
Mhm.
It proposes this strategic vocabulary building.
What's that?
Okay. It focuses on learning words and phrases that are relevant to you,
Oh, okay.
your interests, your goals.
Mhm.
So it suggests making your own word lists
Oh,
based on topics you like travel or food, movies, music.
right. Okay, that sounds way more engaging than flipping through a dictionary.
Right.
But how do you make sure you actually use these words?
Okay, so the guide recommends this technique.
Yeah.
It's called spaced repetition.
Okay.
And it involves reviewing the words at different intervals to strengthen your memory.
Oh, cool.
There's tons of apps and websites that can help with that.
That's a clever way to keep those words
Yeah.
fresh in your mind.
Right.
So it's not just about learning new words, it's about actively using them.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
the guide emphasizes the importance of using these words in context.
Okay.
So instead of just memorizing definitions,
Mhm.
try to make sentences,
Okay.
or even short stories
Yeah.
that use the words, this will help you, like actually understand them,
Yeah.
how they're used.
In real life.
Yeah,
That's such a practical tip.
right.
It's one thing to know the definition, but it's another to be able to use it,
Exactly.
like in a sentence.
Exactly.
Yeah, confidently.
The guide suggests finding creative ways to use new words in your daily life.
Oh, like what?
Well, you could label things around your house, write journal entries,
Okay.
challenge yourself to think in English for a few minutes each day.
Thinking in English.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of scary, to be honest.
It might seem challenging,
Yeah.
but the guide breaks it down.
Okay.
It suggests starting with simple thoughts and descriptions,
Like what?
like I'm hungry, or the sky is blue.
Oh.
As you get more comfortable, you can, increase the complexity.
I guess it's like building a muscle.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect to lift a heavy weight on your first day at the gym.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes time
Yeah.
to build strength.
And consistency.
Yeah, consistency.
And the guide emphasizes that the more you expose yourself to the language,
Yeah.
the easier it'll be to think in English. So surround yourself with English,
Books, movies, music.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And your brain will naturally start to make connections.
Oh, I'm starting to get excited about this.
Yeah.
Thinking in English thing.
It's cool.
But what about those moments when you just blank
Huh?
and you can't remember a word or a phrase?
Okay.
We've all been there.
Of course, happens to everyone, even native speakers.
Okay, good.
But the guide offers some strategies for dealing with those tip of the tongue moments.
Okay, what are they?
Well, it emphasizes staying calm and using circumlocution.
Circumlocution. What's that?
That means, describing the word
Okay.
that you're trying to say.
Oh, so instead of freezing up and saying, I don't know the word,
Yeah.
I could try to describe it
Yeah,
using other words.
exactly.
Like, it's the thing you used to.
Yeah,
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
right.
Yeah, it's like playing charades in your
Yeah.
vocabulary.
And the guide says you should practice circumlocution, regularly.
Yeah.
You can play games with friends
Well, that's fun.
where you challenge each other to describe words
Oh, I like that.
without actually saying them.
Okay, we've covered a lot
Yeah.
in this first part of our deep dive, from building a foundation of practical phrases to mastering pronunciation and expanding your vocabulary.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Well, one of the most important aspects of speaking any language is confidence.
Right.
And that's where the guide's emphasis on practice comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough to just learn the words and phrases.
Right.
You need to actually use them.
Right, and that's where I think a lot of language learners get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to practice at home,
Yeah,
but it's another to actually go out there and talk to people.
right.
Any tips on overcoming that fear, of making mistakes?
Well, the guide acknowledges that fear, and it gives some advice.
Okay, good.
First, it reminds us that everyone makes mistakes.
Okay.
Even native speakers.
Yeah.
It's a natural part of learning.
But how do you deal with those awkward moments when you say something wrong and people look at you like you've just
Yeah.
spoken a foreign language?
The guide says embrace those moments
Okay.
as opportunities to learn.
Okay.
Instead of getting flustered,
Yeah.
try to see them as a chance to clarify,
Okay.
and improve your pronunciation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe even your confidence a little.
And it also recommends finding supportive language partners or groups where you can practice.
In a safe environment.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Right.
Surround yourself with people who will support you.
Yes.
Speaking of support, does the guide offer any strategies for actually putting all this speaking practice into action?
It does.
Like, it's easy to talk about it, but how do you actually make it happen?
Well, the guide gives a range of practical tips for incorporating speaking into your routine,
Oh, cool.
whether you have a partner or not. For solo practice,
Yeah.
it suggests things like recording yourself,
Oh.
describing images out loud, telling stories,
Mm-hmm.
and even having imaginary conversations.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Those are great ideas. And for those who do have a language partner,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of activities does the guide recommend?
Well, the guide's packed with suggestions for interactive speaking activities.
Like what?
Like role-playing common scenarios, debating current events,
Oh,
discussing movies or books,
Okay.
and even playing language-based games.
Oh, that's fun.
The key is to find activities that are engaging and relevant to your interests.
This guide is like a gold mine of advice.
Yeah.
We've barely scratched the surface here of all the tips and techniques.
Yeah.
But before we dive into more specific strategies for improving your speaking,
Okay.
let's take a quick break to process all this awesome information.
Right.
We'll be back soon with more insights from this incredible guide.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into speaking English like you mean it. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super inspired to put all these techniques into practice.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like, there's so much in here.
It really is.
Before the break, we were talking about, actually using your English and overcoming that fear of making mistakes.
Right.
But what about the technical stuff?
Like what?
Like pronunciation. I know a lot of people, they struggle with specific sounds or accents.
Yeah, that's a good point. Pronunciation is often overlooked.
Yeah.
But it's super important for being understood and sounding more natural.
Yeah.
The guide actually goes into this.
Okay, so what are some things learners should focus on?
Okay, so the guide, it breaks pronunciation into 3 core elements.
What are they?
Individual sounds, word stress, and connected speech.
Okay.
It says that mastering individual sounds is like the foundation.
Okay.
For example, a lot of learners have trouble with the sound,
Oh, yeah, that one.
which doesn't exist in many languages.
No, it's hard.
Right.
It's like my tongue is doing gymnastics.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So what's the secret to getting it right? Well, the guide says to pay attention to your tongue and teeth
Okay.
and practice those sounds in isolation until they become more natural.
Oh, okay.
There's a ton of resources online
Really?
that can show you exactly how to do it.
That's so helpful. I wish I had those when I was learning.
Right.
Okay, so what about word stress?
Word stress.
Why is that so important?
Word stress can completely change the meaning of a word.
Oh, really?
Like, for example, the word present
Okay.
can be a noun or a verb,
Yeah.
right? And the stress changes depending on which one it is.
Oh, I see.
If you stress the first syllable, it means a gift.
Okay.
But if you stress the second syllable, it means to give something.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah, subtle but significant.
So how do you know which syllable to stress? Are there, like, rules?
There are some patterns,
Okay.
but English pronunciation can be unpredictable.
Yeah, for sure.
The guide recommends listening to native speakers
Mm.
and paying attention to which syllables they emphasize.
Okay.
It also says to, like, break down words into syllables
Yeah.
and mark the stressed syllable
Oh, that's a good idea.
as you learn new words.
Yeah, like make your own
Yeah.
pronunciation guide.
Exact.
Okay, I like that. So connected speech.
What's that?
This is about how words flow together
Okay.
in natural conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Native speakers often like blend sounds,
Oh, yeah.
drop syllables,
Oh,
link words together.
Okay.
So like, do you want to go?
yeah.
Often sounds like, do you want to go?
Yeah.
Right. So that's why it sounds like they're talking so fast.
Right. They're not just speaking fast, they're connecting the words to
Okay.
make it smoother.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
And the guide points out that understanding this is important for comprehending native speakers
Mm-hmm.
and sounding more natural yourself.
Okay.
It recommends listening for those patterns and practicing, through shadowing.
Shadowing again.
Yeah.
It seemed like that technique's really useful
It is.
for pronunciation.
It is.
But let's move beyond pronunciation.
Right.
What about like fluency?
Fluency.
How do you get to that point where you can just speak
Okay.
without, hesitating or searching for words?
Fluency is often seen as like the holy grail of language learning.
Yeah.
This guide offers some insights.
Okay.
It says that fluency isn't about speaking perfectly
Oh, good.
or never making mistakes.
Okay, good.
It's about communicating your ideas
Yeah.
effectively and effortlessly.
It takes the pressure off.
Right.
Yeah.
But how do you get to that point of effortlessness?
Yeah. Is it just practicing a lot?
Well, practice is essential.
Yeah.
But the guide says that the type of practice is important.
Okay.
You should do activities that push you a little bit,
Okay.
but not too much.
So like the sweet spot.
Yeah, where you're challenged but not overwhelmed.
Right. Okay. I like that.
Like working out.
Yeah.
You need to challenge your muscles but not hurt yourself.
Yeah. Good analogy.
Right. And the guide encourages learners to experiment.
With different types of practice.
Exactly.
Okay. So it's all about finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the guide emphasizes that consistency is key.
Mm-hmm.
It recommends practicing every day, even just for a few minutes.
Right. A little bit goes a long way.
Right. The more you use it, the
Yeah.
more natural it'll become.
Okay. This is all starting to make sense, but I have to ask
Yeah.
about thinking in English.
Okay.
Is it really possible? Like, can you actually switch your brain?
The guide addresses that.
Okay.
And it says that thinking in English is a skill
Okay.
that you can develop gradually over time.
Okay.
It's not about like turning off your native language.
Right.
It's about adding English to your thought process.
But how do you do that?
The guide recommends starting with simple things.
Okay.
Like describing objects around you in English or mentally practicing conversations.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Before you have them.
So like train your brain.
Yeah.
One thought at a time.
Exactly. And the more you immerse yourself,
Mm.
the easier it becomes.
Oh.
Surround yourself with English,
Mhm.
and your brain will like naturally start to
Yeah.
process it.
That's fascinating. It's like rewiring your brain.
Yeah, it is.
What about those moments when you're speaking
Yeah.
and you completely blank?
Uh-huh.
You can't remember a word.
Okay.
How do you deal with that?
The guide says, first of all, stay calm.
Don't panic.
Yeah, don't panic.
Right. Okay.
Everyone has those moments.
Okay, good.
Even native speakers.
Okay, that's reassuring. Yeah.
So the guide suggests using circumlocution.
Circumlocution. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it means describing the word
Right. Yeah.
you're trying to say.
Okay. So like if I can't remember the word umbrella,
Yeah.
I could say the thing you use to keep the rain off your head.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like playing charades
Yeah.
with your words.
Exactly.
But doesn't that sound awkward?
It might feel awkward,
Yeah.
but it's actually a very common strategy,
Right.
even among native speakers.
Okay, good.
And it's a great way to like expand your vocabulary
Yeah.
and learn to express yourself in different ways.
Okay, so it's turning a communication breakdown
Yeah,
into a learning opportunity.
exactly.
Okay, I love that.
And the guide recommends practicing this regularly.
Okay?
You can even play games with friends
Yeah, that's fun.
to challenge each other.
We've covered so much
I know.
in this part, from pronunciation to fluency, vocabulary, and even confidence.
It's a lot.
But there's one crucial element of speaking English like you mean it
Okay.
that we haven't talked about yet.
Okay, what's that?
Confidence.
Ah, yes.
How do you get that inner assurance?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And the guide talks about this.
Okay, good.
It says that confidence comes from a few things.
Okay, like what?
Mastering the technical stuff,
Yeah.
having good vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly, believing in yourself.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about knowing the rules.
Right.
It's about having that, like, inner belief.
Yes, that you can do it.
But how do you get that?
The guide offers some advice.
Okay, good.
It reminds us that everyone starts somewhere.
Right.
Making mistakes is normal.
Yeah.
It encourages you to set realistic goals.
Okay.
Celebrate small wins and focus on progress.
Not perfection.
Not perfection, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good reminder.
Right. It's easy to compare ourselves to others and get
Yeah.
discouraged.
Yeah.
But focus on your own journey
Yeah.
and those small wins.
Okay, I like that.
And the guide also says, find a supportive environment,
Yeah.
whether it's a language partner, a group, or online.
Right. People who will support you.
Exactly.
That's so important
It is.
to have that support.
It is.
And the guy also says,
Yeah.
confidence, it's not a fixed thing.
Right.
It's something you can develop.
You can build it.
Okay, so anyone can become confident
Yes.
in speaking English.
Absolutely.
That's great.
And this guide gives you the tools to do that.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
We've covered so much in this part,
So much.
from pronunciation and fluency
Yes.
to vocabulary and confidence.
It's amazing.
Before we wrap up, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
Let all this info sink in.
Yeah.
We'll be back soon with the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
We'll explore even more tips
Okay.
for speaking English like you mean it. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into speaking English like you mean it. We've explored so much already, like pronunciation and fluency, but now I'm ready for the action,
Right. Time to put it all into practice.
Yeah, make a plan.
Exactly.
And that's where this guide is really helpful.
It is. It gives you steps you can actually take.
So where do we begin?
Well, the guide says to start by figuring out your goals.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah. What do you want to achieve? Travel. Connect with people. Get a better job.
That's a good point. Got to have a reason.
Right. Then you got to see where you're at now.
Like, what am I good at? What do I need to work on?
Exactly. Be honest with yourself.
Okay, and then what? How do I actually practice?
The guide has tons of activities.
Oh, cool. Like what?
Well, for pronunciation, it suggests tongue twisters or shattering or recording yourself.
Those are good ideas.
Right.
What if I don't have anyone to practice with?
You can still practice solo.
Really?
Yeah, it's just as effective as long as you're consistent.
Okay, cool.
You can describe images out loud, talk to yourself, even make your own podcasts.
Wow, that's creative.
Right. But if you do have someone to practice with,
Yeah.
the guide says to join groups, find a partner, or do online exchanges.
Oh, and talk to people in real life, too.
Exactly, like at a cafe or something.
Okay, but finding time to practice can be hard.
I know, but the guide has tips for staying motivated. Set realistic goals. Break things down into small steps and reward yourself.
Oh, okay, so don't be too hard on myself.
Right, and if you hit a plateau,
Yeah, what then?
revisit your goals, try new things, ask for feedback.
So it's okay to switch things up.
Yeah, and remember why you started learning.
That's a good point.
And there are tons of resources out there to help you.
Like what?
Dictionaries, apps, websites, even just surrounding yourself with English.
Books, movies, music, yeah.
Exactly. Find what you enjoy.
Okay, so we've talked about techniques, practice, resources,
Yeah.
but what about confidence?
Ah, yes, the key ingredient.
It's one thing to know the rules,
Mm.
but it's another to actually feel confident speaking.
The guide has great advice for that.
Oh, good. What does it say?
Remember, everyone makes mistakes. Perfection isn't the goal.
Right, it's about communication.
Exactly. So shift your mindset.
From fear to curiosity.
Exactly. Embrace the challenge. Have fun.
I love that. What an inspiring way to wrap things up.
Right. Speaking English isn't about being perfect.
It's about connecting with people.
Exactly.
Well, I'm feeling super motivated to go out there and practice.
Me too. Remember, embrace the journey.
Yeah, enjoy the process.
And keep those conversations flowing.
That's a wrap on our deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so are you ready to dive into this list of 99 words? It's supposed to be like the most useful words for daily conversation.
Yeah, it's kind of a fascinating idea.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's like, this linguistic survival kit, like if you only had 99 words to work with,
Right.
could you actually communicate?
It's like the bare minimum of language.
It is. And what's really interesting to me is like, thinking about this list as a way to understand how humans make meaning,
Oh, yeah.
with just, the fewest possible pieces.
Like a linguistic Lego set.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like reverse engineering language,
But it is.
We're starting with like this simplified model
Right.
and using it to understand this complex system.
Exactly.
So cool. Before we break down all the categories and like go word by word,
Sure.
let's just take a second to appreciate like how much you can actually say with only 99 words.
Yeah, that is amazing.
I mean, think about it. You can talk about what you did today, how you're feeling, even like make plans for the future, all with just this tiny little vocabulary.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start unpacking these categories.
Okay.
The first one is greetings.
Right.
And I immediately was like, why include both hello and hi?
Yeah. Why both?
It seems like such a subtle distinction for such a small vocabulary.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I think that subtle difference actually speaks volumes about like formality in language.
Oh, interesting.
Hello is generally considered more formal. Hi is a more casual. It's a really simple choice, but it can kind of signal a lot about the relationship between speakers.
Yeah, it's like choosing your weapon linguistically speaking.
That's a good way to put it.
You don't want to use the wrong level of formality in the wrong situation.
Exactly.
So even in the stripped down vocabulary, it seems like social nuance is still really important.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's move on to actions.
Okay.
And right away, I'm intrigued by make and do.
Oh, yeah.
They seem super basic, but I feel like there's so much hidden complexity there.
Well, they're like the Swiss Army knives of language.
Yeah.
And I think it's a clue to how language evolves.
Right.
You start with these really broad verbs like make and do, but then as societies get more complex, you need more precise words.
Right.
But we still hang on to those multi-purpose verbs because they're just so useful.
It's like they're carrying the weight of all those more specific verbs within them.
Exactly.
Instead of saying construct or manufacture, we can just say make.
Right.
Okay, moving on to descriptions.
Right?
This is where I got really interested.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of words for emotions on this list. Happy, sad, tired, hungry, thirsty. Why prioritize feelings so much?
Well, think about it, being able to communicate basic needs like hunger and thirst. Those are essential for survival.
Yeah.
And emotions like happiness or sadness, they're really powerful signals.
Yeah.
They can influence how other people interact with you.
Right.
So in a way, they're just as important as actions or objects when you're trying to get your point across.
It's not just about conveying information.
Right.
It's about expressing your internal state,
Exactly.
which can be super crucial for navigating social situations.
Definitely.
All right, next up we have time and frequency.
Hey.
And what I find fascinating about this category
Yeah.
is how it highlights like the human struggle to understand something that is actually really abstract.
Oh.
Time.
It's true. Time is a weird one.
Yeah,
It's like these basic time concepts aren't as straightforward as they seem.
I know.
You know, we humans, we perceive and organize time in a way that's like unique in the animal kingdom.
Right.
We use language to create a framework for understanding something that's inherently intangible.
And here, with just a handful of words, always, sometimes, never, we have a whole system for expressing like complex ideas about, when things happen, how often they happen.
Right.
It's like building a whole universe of time with just a few linguistic Legos.
Yes, that analogy.
Right.
It really is. It's a testament to the power of language to make sense of the world around us.
Totally. And it highlights how even seemingly simple words can carry a lot of weight.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, let's move on to the category of places.
Okay.
What immediately jumped out at me here is the word workplace.
Okay.
But there aren't any specific jobs listed.
Right.
And it made me think, is this a reflection of how work is viewed in modern society?
That's a really interesting observation. I mean, workplace is a much more generalized space than, say, farm or factory.
Yeah.
This could indicate like a shift towards a world where work happens in a variety of settings.
Okay.
And, of course, language adapts to reflect these societal changes.
So this seemingly simple word choice might actually be a clue about the intended audience for this list.
Interesting.
Someone navigating a more, modern, fluid work environment.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I'm really curious to dig into what's missing from this list, because it's often the omissions that are the most revealing, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. What's left AUT of a language can tell us just as much as what's included. Sometimes that's where the real story is.
It's like looking at the negative space in a painting, right?
Yeah, sometimes that's where the real story is.
Okay, so the first thing that jumps out at me is the lack of slang or informal language.
Okay.
This list is very proper and polite. Why do you think they made that choice?
That's a good question.
It seems like it would make it harder to really connect with native speakers,
Well, I think slang is so hyper-specific to a time and place. This list seems to be aiming for a timeless, almost international version of English.
Okay.
Something that would be understood across cultures.
Right.
And wouldn't sound dated in a few years.
So it's like they're going for the most universally applicable version of English.
Right.
Even if it means sacrificing some of the, richness and nuance of everyday speech.
Exactly.
It's interesting to think about the trade-offs, right? You gain clarity and broad understanding, but you lose some of the color and personality that slang can bring.
For sure. And it raises an interesting question about the purpose of language itself.
Oh, yeah.
Is it primarily about conveying information? Clearly and efficiently?
Right.
Or is it also about expressing identity,
Yeah.
building relationships,
Right.
playing with the creative possibilities of words?
All right, so we've talked about the missing slang,
Right.
but there's another omission that really struck me. The lack of abstract concepts.
Okay.
We've got love and hate, which seem pretty fundamental, but that's about it.
It's true.
Why do you think that is?
It seems like this list prioritizes concrete needs
Okay.
and immediate experiences
Uh-huh.
over more complex or nuanced ideas.
I see.
I mean, if you're focused on basic survival and communication,
Right.
you probably don't need to be debating the meaning of life.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess when you're trying to build a language from scratch, you have to start with the essentials.
The bare minimum.
The things you need to physically survive and navigate the world around you.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to some of the categories that are included.
Right.
And questions feels like the most essential of all, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, questions are how we learn, how we explore, how we connect with others on a deeper level.
Couldn't agree more.
They're fundamental to the human experience.
For sure.
And look at the words they've chosen. What, where, when, why, how.
The classic 5 Ws.
It's like they're targeting the most fundamental aspects of our experience, like the nature of things, their location, their timing, their causes, and their methods.
Yeah, it's like the building blocks of curiosity.
Right.
Those 5 Ws, those are practically universal across languages.
Wow.
That tells us something about the fundamental ways that humans seek to understand the world.
It's like we're hardwired for curiosity. We need to know the who, what, where, when, and why of everything.
We do.
Okay, let's move on to connectors. These are the words that link ideas together, right?
Right, like the glue that holds language together.
And the ones they've chosen, and but or because. So they're like the basic building blocks of logic and reasoning.
Absolutely. They allow us to create more complex sentences,
Right?
to show cause and effect,
Mm-hmm.
contrast ideas,
Yeah.
offer alternatives.
It's amazing how much nuance you can add with just a handful of words.
It really is.
Okay, so then we come to the miscellaneous category.
Right.
This one feels a bit like a catch-all.
It does. A little bit of everything.
But like they're acknowledging that even in a simplified vocabulary,
Yeah.
we still need ways to talk about the things that matter most to us.
Right.
Our relationships, our values, our place in the world.
Yeah, we've got thing which is about as general as it gets.
Right.
But then you've got life, world, friend, family.
Interesting how they grouped those concepts together.
It is. It suggests an awareness of the interconnectedness of our experiences,
Right.
even in a very basic vocabulary.
And then, of course, there's words like money car house.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder if that reflects a certain emphasis on material possessions.
Perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe just the practical realities of daily life in many cultures.
True.
But it also speaks to the need for language to evolve alongside our technological advancements.
Okay.
As we create new things, we need new words to describe them.
So I think we've done a pretty thorough job unpacking this list.
I think so.
We've talked about the choices they made, the words they included, the ones they left out.
Mm-hmm.
It's really given us a fascinating glimpse into the essential elements of communication, hasn't it?
I think so. It has been a really enriching exploration.
It has.
And I think what's most striking is how this seemingly simple list of 99 words has sparked so many big questions.
Yeah, it really makes you realize that language is so much more than just like a set of words.
It is.
You know,
it's a living, breathing system that's constantly evolving
It really is.
and reflecting the world around us.
Okay, so we've gone like deep into the nitty-gritty of this list. We've analyzed categories, debated word choices, pondered the missing pieces. But what does it all mean for you, the listener? What can you take away from this deep dive?
I hope it's given you a new appreciation for the power of language.
Right.
Even with just 99 words, you can express a surprising range of, thoughts, feelings, experiences.
Yeah.
It's kind of a reminder that sometimes simplicity can be a strength.
And it makes you think, like, what if you were building your own list of essential words? What would it look like?
What words would you choose?
What would those choices say about you?
That's a great exercise for the listeners.
It is.
To think about the words you use most often.
Yeah.
The ones that feel indispensable in your daily life.
Because language is so personal.
It really is.
It's not just about conveying information.
It's about expressing who we are.
Yeah.
How we see the world.
Right.
What matters most to us.
Exactly. By paying closer attention to the language we use the words, we choose the way we string them together. I think we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
Totally.
So there you have it, our deep dive into the world of essential vocabulary. It's been a blast exploring this list with you.
It has been.
And hopefully we've left you with some new insights about language communication.
And maybe even a little about yourself.
And remember, this is just the beginning. The exploration of language is a lifelong journey.
It is.
So keep asking questions, keep learning,
Keep playing with words.
and most importantly,
Keep talking.